for a special opening remarks of Councilmember Brinker Harding as only can be delivered by Councilmember Amy Melton in his stead.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and Brinker couldn't be here today. I'm 6 feet away. This mask, sometimes you can't hear what we're saying. I just wanted to say that this past weekend, we did lay to rest a very caring, devoted, dedicated, humble, talented, and brilliant servant, Dr. Joe Stothert. He served our community for decades as a trauma surgeon, saving so many lives. He served as medical director for Omaha's fire department for 18 years before becoming the first man of Omaha as the husband of our mayor and his wife of 40 years. Joe will be missed, but never forgotten. And I and so many in our city send our love, thoughts, and prayers to Jean, Liz, and Andrew, who are all here. And in fact, Jean just did a press conference upstairs, and she will be returning to work. She's glad to get back, and she knows that that's exactly what Joe would want her to do, as he was such a supportive husband of hers, and he was so supportive of our city, not just as her husband, but with everything he's done and all the lives he's saved and lives he's touched, including my own and a number of people that I know. And among Joe's favorite organizations was the First Responders Foundation and Omaha Police Foundation. He was committed to supporting those first responders who put their lives at risk, protecting us each and every day. And I know Dr. Joe would want us all to support the family and officer Jeffrey Whitstruck, the officer that was shot at Westroads this past Friday. That again, I think touched this whole community when we heard of an officer responding to something as simple as a shoplifting incident that turned into something where he almost lost his life. We're very grateful that Officer Whitstruck is doing well. It looks like is going to have complete recovery, but we know it's going to be a long road for him and for his family. So I would ask that all of you keep Officer Whitstruck and his family in your prayers as he recovers from his injuries. This lets us reflect and be grateful for all of our men and women that risk their lives every day, protecting each and every one of us in this city. And the medical doctors, nurses, and staff that dedicate their lives to saving others and saving those that the first responders bring into them. I'm so proud of our city over the last few weeks for their outpouring of love and support for both the Stothert family and Officer Whitstruck and his family, and all of our first responders. We are one community that comes together in the face of tragedy, and it gives me great comfort and great pride to be a part of this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Melton.
An affidavit of publication is on file for the pre-council and city council meeting, and a current copy of the Open Meeting Act is posted in a white binder on the east wall of the legislative chambers.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us at this meeting of the Omaha City Council. As a courtesy to those in attendance and to facilitate the conduct of our business, we ask that you please turn off or silence all electronic devices.
Items 6 and 7 relate to the same project and can be considered together. For Iron Bluff, located southwest of 204th and F Street, Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval. Item 6, an ordinance to approve an amendment to the future land use element of the master plan to reclassify the intersection of 204th and F Streets to a neighborhood mixed-use area. Item 7, a resolution to approve the preliminary plat for Iron Bluff.
The public hearing on items 6 and 7 begins at this time. Are there any proponents?
Mr. President, council members, Jessica Thomas, 10250 Regency Circle, here today on behalf of the applicant. Along with myself, I have Joe Flaxbeard from Lamper Nearson and Bob Begley from the development team. The project before you is an approximately 100-acre site, which will include mixed-use, single-family, and multifamily residential. The project is located around 204th and F Street. We're here today to answer any questions you may have in regards to this project.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents? Are there any opponents? The public hearing is closed. Roll call.
Melton. Palermo. Brennan. Festerson. Gray. Mr. President.
Yes.
Items 6 and 7 are approved, 6-0. Items 8 through 13 relate to the same project and can be considered together for West Farm Replat 7, located southwest of 144th Street and West Dodge Road. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval. Items 8 through 10, ordinances to rezone this property from R4 District, R7 District, and MU District to R4 District, R7 District, and MU District. Item 11, an ordinance to approve a major amendment to mixed-use district development agreement to allow changes to the building height limitations. Item 12, a resolution to approve the final plat for West Farm Replat 7. Item 13, a resolution to approve the West Farm Replat 7 subdivision agreement.
The public hearing on items 8 through 13 begins at this time. Are there any proponents?
Yes, Joe Flaxbeard, 14710 West Dodge Road. Engineer on behalf of the applicant, replat 7 and the associated rezonings. It's really just that next split phase of that original master plan for the development. Here to answer any questions.
Are there any other proponents? Are there any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Roll call.
Melton. Palermo. Brennan. Festerson. Gray. Mr. President.
Yes.
Items 8 through 13 are approved, 6-0. Items 14 through 17 relate to the same project and can be considered together for Antler View East, located southwest of 180th Street and West Maple Road. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval. Item 14, an ordinance to rezone this property from AG District and DR District to MU District. Item 15, an ordinance to approve a major amendment to mixed-use district development agreement. Item 16, a resolution to approve the final plat for Antler View East. Item 17, a resolution to approve the Antler View East subdivision agreement.
We'll begin the public hearing with the representative for the applicant, Mr. Doug Kellner of Thompson, Dreesen, and Dorner. Mr. Kellner.
Doug Kellner, 10836 Old Mill Road. Here on behalf of the applicant, available to answer any questions if you need.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents? Are there any opponents? The public hearing is closed. Roll call.
Melton. Palermo. Brennan. Festerson. Gray. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed, 6-0. Item 18, an ordinance to rezone property located at 2408 Maple Street from R5 District and R7 District to R5 District. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
The public hearing on item 18 begins at this time. Are there any proponents? Are there any opponents? The public hearing is closed. Roll call.
Melton. Palermo. Brennan. Festerson. Gray. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed, 6-0. Item 19, an ordinance to rezone property located at 3803 and 3811 Corby Street from R4 35 District to R4 District. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
The public hearing on item 19 begins at this time. Are there any proponents? Are there any opponents? The public hearing is closed. Roll call.
Melton. Palermo. Brennan. Festerson. Gray. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed, 6-0. Item 20, an ordinance to rezone property located at 3813 Corby Street and 3802 and 3806 Miami Street from R4 35 District to R4 District. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
The public hearing on item 20 begins at this time. Are there any proponents? Are there any opponents? The public hearing is closed. Roll call.
Melton. Palermo. Brennan. Festerson. Gray. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed, 6-0. Item 21, an ordinance to rezone property located at 5832 R Street from DR District to R3 District. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
The Public hearing on item 21 begins at this time. Are there any proponents? Are there any opponents? The public hearing is closed. Roll call.
Melton. Palermo. Brennan. Festerson. Gray. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0. Item 22, an ordinance to amend the boundaries of the MCC overlay district to incorporate into that district the property located northeast of 138th and P Streets. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
The public hearing on item 22 begins at this time. Are there any proponents? Are there any opponents? The public hearing is closed. Roll call.
Melton. Palermo. Brennan. Festerson. Gray. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0. Item 23, a resolution to approve a special use permit to allow large group living in the MBD district located at 2226 N Street. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Before we begin with people in the crowd who may want to testify, we have the applicant represented by Mr. Doug Kellner and Joe Detlefs of TD2 registered to speak by Zoom.
Doug Kellner with TD2 10836 Old Mill Road, here on behalf of the applicant, available to answer any questions that come about.
Okay. Does your partner wish to say anything? Joe?
No.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents? Sorry, Joe. Did you want to say something?
Sorry, I was a little too late.
You can if you wish.
No, I'm just here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents? Are there any opponents? The public hearing is closed. Roll call.
Melton. Palermo. Brennan. Festerson. Gray. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0.
Thank you.
Item 24, to consider a liquor license addition application for Mouth of the South located at 16909 Lakeside Hills Plaza, number 118, to add an outdoor area approximately 18 feet by 18 feet.
The public hearing on item 24 begins at this time. Are there any proponents? Are you with the applicant? Yeah, come on up. Tell us your name and address.
Ryan Ernst, Mouth of the South,
Address?
3422 Forest Lawn Avenue.
And you're here to answer any questions?
Yep.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents? Are there any opponents? The public hearing is closed. Councilmember Festerson, you're recognized.
Hi, Ryan. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good to see you.
Yep, good to see you.
And congrats on the new location here. This was, I think we all know, a very popular spot in Florence, and has moved west with this application, but I know you'll do well there. And well, I can attest the food is great, as can several other council members who've been there with me. One question for you about the old Florence site, though. I know, obviously there was a fire and there was some vacant ground there. How are we doing in terms of taking care of that site?
I'm actually working on listing it right now, so.
Okay.
Yep.
So it is for sale?
Yep.
And are you maintaining it and keeping it clean in the meantime?
Yes, sir.
Great, I appreciate it.
Yep,
Thank you.
absolutely. Yep.
I spoke to someone on Monday who spoke highly of your old-fashioned drink.
That's good.
Now, that's pretty impressive for a customer to remember that and then tell me how good it was. So I'm not going to ask you to share your secrets, but we followed your movement from Florence to where you are now and wish you the best of luck.
Thank you very much.
Roll call.
Melton. Palermo. Brennan. Festerson.
Yes.
Gray. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0. Item 25, to consider a liquor license addition application for Red Lion Lounge located at 3802 Farnam Street to add an outdoor area approximately 21 feet by 12 feet. A is communication from the Planning Department regarding permits and right-of-way lease for the outdoor area.
Public hearing on item 25 begins at this time. We have Mr. Mike Kelly registered for the applicant.
Mr. President, members of the council, Mike Kelly, 2804 South 87th Avenue, here for any questions you might have.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents wishing to speak? Are there any opponents? The public hearing is closed. Second, roll call.
Melton. Palermo. Brennan. Festerson. Gray. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0. Item 26, to consider a special designated liquor license application for Chevy's located at 2607 North Main Street for a beer garden on June 4th, 2021 from 5 p.m. to midnight with music until midnight.
We had Mr. Jeremy Edelman registered to participate by Zoom. He was here. You see him? Here he comes. Mr. Edelman, welcome.
Yes, Jeremy Edelman, 2607 North Main Street, Elkhorn, Nebraska, 68022.
Is this the same event you've done for the last several years?
Yep, excluding last year would be 11 years.
Wow. Well, good luck, and I'm glad you could make it today. We were wondering where you were the last couple of meetings, so.
Yes, I do apologize about my absence. Unfortunately, I had a death in the family, and I was attending services down south in Dallas. So thank you for the patience of the council, and I do apologize for any inconvenience, and thanks for having a special hearing for me today.
Thank you, and we're sorry for your loss.
Thank you very much.
Are there any other proponents or opponents on item 26? The public hearing is closed. Roll call.
Melton. Palermo. Brennan. Festerson. Gray. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0. Consent agenda. Any member of the City Council may cause any item placed on the consent agenda to be removed. Items removed from the consent agenda shall be taken up by the City Council immediately following the consent agenda in the order in which they were removed, unless otherwise provided by the City Council Rules of Order.
The public hearing on agenda items 27 through 30 were held on March 9, 2021.
Can you remove 27?
We'll remove 27, so if there's going to be a motion, it'll be on 28 through 30. Roll call.
Melton. Palermo. Brennan. Festerson. Gray. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0.
Is there a motion on 27B?
This would be an amendment of the whole.
Roll call.
Melton. Palermo. Brennan. Festerson. Gray. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0.
I think we're going to take off at 30. We have 34
And 40.
and 41. The public hearing on items 31 through 33, 35 through 40, and 42 through 47 begin at this time. If you wish to address the City Council on any of these items, please come to the microphone, indicate the agenda item number you wish to address, and your testimony that you wish to give.
Larry Storr, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha 68132, in regards to item number 41. I didn't do a lot of homework before I came down today, but I'm going to
Mr.
refer
Storr,
to the...
We've taken 41 off the consent agenda, so there'll be a separate public hearing where you can come back and testify.
Can't hear you very well out there.
Is there anyone else wishing to testify on these items of the consent agenda resolutions that's in the chamber before I go to the people registered online? Seeing none, we'll go to Mr. Doug Kellner. Oh, that one's pulled. 32, Shay McKibben is here to answer any questions. And we have David Carney on one that's been pulled. Okay, so he's not here. Okay, so is there anyone with questions for Ms. McKibben? If not, is there a motion? Roll call?
Melton. Palermo. Brennan. Festerson. Gray. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0.
Now we'll go to open the public hearing on item 34. Madam Clerk, did you wish to read it? Or?
Item 34, a resolution to authorize the purchasing agent to issue a purchase order to Logic Inc. in the amount of $23,064 for customer support agreement to be utilized by the Missouri River Water Resource Recovery Facility.
Are there any proponents or opponents on item 34? Public hearing is closed. Motion, but we've advertised a public hearing, so I had to call that up. Is there a motion to allow withdrawal? Motion to allow withdrawal. Second. Roll call.
Melton. Palermo. Brennan. Festerson. Gray. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0.
Wish to read up 41?
Item 41, a resolution to approve the amended agreement with the African American Empowerment Network, Inc. in the amount of $500,000 as amended to $265,969.03 for partial funding of its Step Up Omaha Job Training and Work Experience Program.
Before we open the public hearing, we'll have Mr. Bill Lukash from City Planning address this item. Mr. Lukash.
Yes, thank you so much. Bill Lukash, Omaha Planning Department, Community Development Division. Can I lift this up real quick? Or?
Yes. Okay. And then he'll turn it on for you.
Okay. Thank you so much. Typically, when we have funds that are unspent over the course of a program year, we would not bring that to your attention. Those funds would just roll over to the next budget year. In this particular case, an amendment was required. The agreement that we had with the Empowerment Network called for certain activities. Due to COVID, some of those activities, and the Empowerment Network is here to maybe provide some more clarity on this, were not able to be conducted. And so they had to change course in midstream this year. And the agreement did not, the agreement that we previously had did not really allow for those amendments or those changes. So we had to make a change to the agreement, an amendment to the agreement. And while we did it, we also decided to go ahead and put in the actual amount of money that they spent this year rather than just leave it at $500,000. So,
and when you say this year, you're talking about 2020.
2020, I'm sorry, yes. And I have a table I want to show you to kind of clarify some of this, because I know it gets kind of messy. This is what basically the amendment does. It decreases the amount from $500,000 to $265,000, reduces the number of CDBG eligible participants, and includes different tasks than we had previously. So you can see that in the third bullet point. And then I don't really understand the full consequences of the fourth, but obviously it ties to some kind of a federal regulation regarding purchasing equipment. Just to kind of illustrate this a little bit better, I did put together a table. It's rushed, so I apologize that it's not the best in the world. CDBG funds, when we receive those, they are actually scheduled for use in the following year, not the current year, whereas general funds are scheduled for that year. So in this table here, the Step Up program, for example, in 2020, shows $1 million. They spent $610,123. That's our 2019 CDBG funds to be used in 2020. So that column shows the funding year that we received from HUD. The next column over is general fund year, so that's 2020 general funds. So 2020 general funds, 2019 CDBG, all go toward, 2020 Step Up program funds. They do not spend fully all the money every year out of their general fund account, and that's reflected there on the far right-hand column. This year, they were not able to spend all of the CDBG money that we allocated to the program, which, I'm sorry. No.
I just want to be clear that everything we're talking about today had to do with
2020
2020, the previous year, and it has nothing to do with what we're doing in 2021.
Correct. Yes, thank you for correcting me. For 2020, they were not able to spend all of their CDBG or general fund dollars, and that number is reflected in the spent column under the Step Up program. For 2021, the budget is $400,000 of 2020 CDBG and 2021 $500,000 general fund dollars. To my knowledge, I'm not sure exactly what the budget is for 2021 for general funds.
Thank you, Mr. Lukash. So in case anyone didn't catch what he said, because these are federal community development block grant dollars that flow to the city a year after they're appropriated, and in this case, this portion of the federal community development block grant dollars for this program, Step Up, were not all spent in the year for which they were appropriated. Due to COVID, there is a formal amendment that has to deal with approving how the funds were expended and in the amounts for which they were spent. And that's what we're doing today.
Perfect.
But this chart shows the city's prolonged, sustained, both general fund dollar and community development block grant dollar commitment to this program on this chart.
Correct.
Is that accurate?
That is all perfectly
That's
said.
what we're doing here today?
Yes.
Okay. Now, in fairness to Mr. Lukash, we've pressed him into service on this on very short notice. So we appreciate you trying to put this together.
Yeah.
We appreciate Mr. Barney coming here today. At this point, we'll open the public hearing on this item to any proponents or opponents. Thank you, Mr. Lukash.
Larry Store, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha 68132. I'm more opposed to the understanding of this item. Seems to me that are we spending money before we have the money to spend it on? The way it reads, amending up to $500,000 from $265,000 for just partial funding, but it's already been spent because it was money from fiscal 2019 to be spent between January and December of 2020. So I don't understand why we're doing this now. It used to be that if you don't spend it, you lose it. Are we trying to squeeze something in at the last minute here? The second point would be, with federal dollars, we then become subject to federal laws and regulations. That takes it out of the hands of the citizens, and maybe the citizens don't like paying for all these programs. So maybe we should restrain our budgets here, even though they are block grants from somebody other than our pocket. It does eventually come out of our pocket because it's federal money that I pay in taxes. Thank you.
Are there any other people wishing to testify on this item? If not, is there a motion? Oh, wait, we have Mr. Barney. Maybe someone else. Don't be shy, come on down.
Willie Barney, 2401 Lake Street. I'm also here with, I just wanted to have an opportunity. I wasn't exactly sure what was on the agenda.
Who's with you, Willie?
Actually, I'd let her introduce herself.
Good afternoon. My name is Ana Torres Rodriguez, 2239 Poppleton Ave, and I am the new Step Up coach for the South Omaha community.
So, welcome. I just wanted to, as this has been a focus area for us for the last, with the city, 7 years, going on 8 years. I'm not sure if there's a lot of questions outside of this that wanted to make sure that it was talking about last year. So don't want to put any more work into it than we need to. But I did want to give a quick report, and that even in the midst of COVID, we were able to serve 500 youth last summer. And we were actually able to expand some of the experiences, including cohorts, construction, robotics, and other. And then as we're moving into 21, which I think that hearing will be sometime in the spring, we'll be back to talk more about some of the outreach. But I really wanted to introduce the council to our new South Omaha coach, the tremendous work she's doing to reach out into the community. But we're available for any questions or comments that you may have.
Thank you. And Anna, if you'd come over and make sure the clerk has the correct spelling on your name for the record, just come on over. Is there anyone else wishing to testify? Public hearing is closed. We have some lights. Councilmember Festerson, you're recognized.
Thanks, Mr. President, and thanks, Mr. Lukash, for providing that background and showing the commitment over a period of time to this program by the city and by the mayor and by the city council. And I think there were some that saw this agenda item and mistakenly thought this was some reduction in commitment to the program. That's certainly not the case. In fact, this council, in particular, Councilman Gray, was the one that started this program, and we've all supported a big increase in funding and commitment towards it, from what started out at $500,000 now to about $1 million a year, as that graph showed. And so I'm glad it was clarified that last year and what we have on our agenda today was just a reflection of the pandemic impact on the program itself, with fewer kids being able to participate and therefore fewer reimbursements, less reimbursements in federal funds. But I do want to make it clear that we all remain very committed to this program going forward, and in 2021 still see it as one of our key strategies, not only to prevent violence and have violence prevention in our city, which is really how this program started and was effective in doing that, but it's now matured into a workforce development and job program, which is what we all intended and hoped it would become. I participated on a Zoom call with many different partners just recently to launch 2021 that Mr. Barney organized, and just so folks know, it's still a very impressive partnership between governments and private companies and city departments and the police departments and many others that are very committed to this program going forward. So I wanted to recognize that and also recognize Mr. Barney and thank him for his ongoing work. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Vice President Palermo, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. And one thing Mr. Lukash didn't point out that was very good to see on the graph was throughout the years the numbers went up. It was about those that were served, because I am a fan of Step Up, but as Mr. Barney will tell you, I'm also a fan of the kids in South Omaha getting a good share of the CDBG money and the city money that's for all kids across the city. And it's interesting you brought Anna with you, because I was going to say I've noticed the outreach, at least in the South Omaha area, this go-around has been above and beyond. So I really appreciate that. You know, we, and I say we, a lot of us that we know have been in them conversations where it was about, don't forget about us, don't forget about us. And you extended that olive branch a year or so ago, and we're opened. And I know you've made that commitment to South Omaha as well as North Omaha. And now that Anna's on board, Anna, you're going to be hearing from me. So Mr. Barney will tell you all the good things I say, right?
Let the record reflect that Anna gave one thumbs up.
One? Okay, next go around, hopefully two. But anyway, thanks for what you're doing. Thanks for the outreach in South Omaha. I mean, ultimately, we need to take care of all the kids, so appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a motion, a second. Roll call.
Melton. Yes. Palermo. Yes. Brennan. Yes. Festerson. Yes. Gray. Yes. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0. Item 48, a resolution to approve a settlement agreement for Shields versus Holtmeyer and Gutierrez in the amount of $55,000.
The public hearing on item 48 begins at this time. Are there any proponents? Are there any opponents? We had one person that registered to speak by video conference who did not attend, so public hearing is closed. Second. Roll call.
Melton. Yes. Palermo. Yes. Brennan. Yes. Festerson. Yes. Gray. Yes. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0. Item 49, an ordinance approving the Bohemian Apartments Tax Increment Financing Redevelopment Agreement in an amount up to $2,050,000.
Public hearing on item 49 begins at this time. Are there any proponents?
Yes, good afternoon. Don Seaton, Omaha City Planning, and I'm available for any questions you may have.
Thank you. Mr. McClay, do you wish to speak as the next proponent?
Tom McClay, 3814 Farnam Street. Just here also to answer any questions that anyone might have. I think we've discussed this project before, but anything I can answer.
Thank you.
Happy St. Patrick's Day Eve to everyone. Thanks.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents? Are there any opponents? public hearing is closed.
Item 50, an ordinance approving the Omaha Box Company Building Tax Increment Financing Redevelopment Agreement in an amount up to $2,715,380.
The public hearing on item 50 begins at this time. Are there any proponents?
Yes, good afternoon. Don Seaton, Omaha City Planning, 1819 Farnam, and I'm here for any questions you may have.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents?
Bob Griffith, 11440 West Center Road, also here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents? Are there any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item 51, an ordinance to accept the bid of Abe's Trash Service, Inc. in the amount of $41,607 to provide rubbish container service for various parks.
The public hearing on item 51 begins at this time. Are there any proponents or opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item 52, an ordinance to accept the bid from BMI Janitorial Group to provide janitorial services at various Omaha public library facilities.
The public hearing on item 52 begins at this time. Are there any proponents or opponents? The public hearing is closed.
One public hearing can be held for items 53 and 54, ordinances approving an agreement with Millman, Inc. for services for the City of Omaha Employee Retirement System and Police and Fire Retirement Systems for years 2021 through 2025.
The public hearing on items 53 and 54 begin at this time. Are there any proponents? Are there any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
One public hearing can be held for items 55 and 56. Item 55, an ordinance approving a development agreement for an occupation tax for Hotel Deco. Item 56, an ordinance providing for the designation of an enhanced employment area for Hotel Deco.
The public hearing on items 55 and 56 begin at this time. Are there any proponents?
Good afternoon, members of the council. My name is Jay Klein. I'm at 10404 Essex Court, Omaha, Nebraska, 68114. I represent White Lotus, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents? Are there any opponents?
Larry Storer, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha, 68132. I'm opposed to 55 and 56 on this basis. We have seemed to be building an awful lot of new hotels and apartment buildings all around the city and the county. What happens if the people don't come to fill? Who's going to pay the cost of doing all this work that's going to be done in hopes that an occupation tax will pay for it? Probably the citizens, if not to tear them down, like we did with the downtown area after Conagra left town, or after Conagra got some tax breaks and then they left town. But you know, you need to think about what are we going to do to attract more and more people for all these things that are being built. Affordable housing, maybe, in these hotels, but I doubt it. Thank you.
Are there any other opponents? Public hearing is closed. Oh, Councilmember Gray, you're recognized.
Yeah, Mr. President, I just wanted to correct the record here. This is not a new hotel. This is a renovation, number one. Number two, there will be no taxpayer dollars that will go into this at all. And if it fails, it's on the owner. It is not on the taxpayer. I just wanted to make that clear so we clear up the record so that it's not confusing to people who are watching on the outside. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Consider it cleared. Madam Clerk. Oh, Councilmember Melton, you're recognized.
And I wanted to say that I concur with that, and I think it's really important that we make sure this is not tax increment financing, which again is not taxpayer dollars, but in this particular case, this is an extra fee that the hotel will be charging its guests. It has nothing to do with the taxpayers. If the citizens of Omaha don't want to go stay at Hotel Deco, then they won't have to pay it. I, on the other hand, am looking forward to this renovation. I think it's fabulous, and in COVID time, I think a lot of us are kind of doing staycations where if you want to get away, sometimes you just drive downtown and have have one night away. So I think what we need to be doing is focusing on on our hotels and our restaurants so that we can get back to normal, and we're making sure that we have the hotels for the people that want to come to Omaha, especially during events like the College World Series, the volleyball tournaments, all of the, I'm absolutely amazed at the amount of conventions and sporting events that our Omaha Convention and Visitors Bureau is bringing back to this city. And we need to make sure that we have the hotel rooms that can do it. So if the hotel thinks that they can charge a little more and that our out-of-town guests are going to be happy to pay it, or even our in-town guests using it, that is on them. But I fully support helping these hotels get back on their feet. So,
Thank you.
and I'm glad you clarified that, because it is very frustrating when we have people that come up and actually state things that are untrue, and we have to make sure that that record is clear, especially if there's a story written or somebody even wants a transcript. We've got to make sure it's clear for the taxpayers of Omaha.
Thank you.
Non-action items, items 57 through 79, do not require public hearing or city council consideration at this meeting, but will be placed on a future agenda for public hearing and/or vote. The reason for non-action is noted after the item on the agenda, as well as the date the item is expected to appear on agenda for consideration.
Roll call.
Melton. Palermo. Brennan. Festerson. Gray. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0. Meeting is adjourned at 2:41.